Let me give you the shortest introduction I've done in a long time, because that's enough, because like I said, if I could do it, I would spend 2, 3, 4 sessions with them. There's that much to say, so let's just welcome Tommy Jacquette.
First of all, I'd like to say how happy I am to be here to talk to you today, and thank Professor Scott for inviting me here. I don't get a chance to do this much often anymore. I used to do it quite a bit back in the 60s, but things have somewhat settled down. I'd like to start out by quoting Malcolm X, who said, "Of all of our studies, history is best suited to reward all research." No matter what study you're in, it is your history, it is the history that you study that prepare you for your life in the future as you grow up and develop. What's so important about history is that everyone has a history. Everyone has a history, good, bad, or indifferent. And it tells us what happened before we got here, and it points out things along the way as we grow and develop that we can do and implement as we grow and develop as young people or as people. Everybody has a history, but black people for some reason seem to have a little resistance for or about our history. That's, I think, because maybe we don't have our whole history, we just have a portion of our history, and that history is when we were enslaved as a people. But our history started long before slavery, and for those of you who get the time, you should have the time, you should study our history as a people before slavery in this country. You'll find out how great we were as a people and the accomplishments we had achieved as a people, from the building of the pyramids to the writing of books, to science, to medicine, to law, to mathematics. We as a people, that's our history as a people. We don't have to take low to anyone or stand in the shadows of anyone else's history. We are in fact the mothers and fathers of human civilization. We need to know this as a people, so when we stand up and talk and when we go out into the world, we can go out with pride and with a sense of accomplishment and a sense of self of who we are as a people. And I'm going to refer to us as black people now. I mean, there was a time when we were called colored or Negroes. Part of what came out of the '65 Watts Revolt was a new conscious and political paradigm. It was a renaissance, but this renaissance for Watts was more of a political renaissance than an artistic renaissance, and that we as a people begin to define and develop for ourselves. We begin to speak for ourselves. We begin to stand up as a people and deal with crucial issues that affected us as a people and our quality of life issues. First of all, I'd like to start off with how the Watts Revolt actually began and why it was so significant. Number one, it began with the arrest of 2 brothers by the name of Jacquette and Wendell Fry. They were driving down Avalon Boulevard. This is in Los Angeles, South Central Los Angeles. They were stopped for drinking under the influence. They were stopped by a California Highway Patrolman. At the time of the stop, he was around the corner from his home, and some of the people who knew him in the neighborhood went around to his house and told his mother that he had been stopped by the police and was being given a ticket. His mother immediately came around to Avalon on 116th and began to discuss or scold Jacquette for driving while he was under the influence, and he did not have his valid California driver's license. At that time, he decided that, well, hey, I'm not going to go to jail. And at that point, the policeman threw him across the car and began to handcuff him. His mother got upset, like any mother would, if you see a child being mistreated or abused, and began to wrestle or tussle with the police officer. They threw her across the car as well, and they arrested her and his brother Jacquette, and they took him off to jail. The revolt actually didn't start until about 4 or 5 hours later, after he had been taken to jail and taken off the scene, and it began behind groups of people began to gather and talk about what had happened. And the Los Angeles Police Department came up and began to disperse the people, getting out with their billy clubs and intimidating with their way they do things then and now, in terms of how they talk to people in the black community as well as the brown community and most minority communities as a whole. At that time, the people dispersed, the police left, The people came back, the police came back, and it was a little back and forth for a minute. And on the third time, someone threw a bottle or a brick at the police. And then, as they say, all hell broke loose and the rest is history. It went on for 6 days and 6 nights before they called in the National Guard. Now, what was significant about this is that at that time, the Los Angeles Police Department had the reputation for being the finest police department in the nation. The #1 police department in the nation. They were dealing with a community that they could not handle. They called in the National Guard because they had been defeated as a police department. And that was significant to both the police department, America, and to black people across this country, that you could actually stand up and defeat your oppressor. Because the Los Angeles Police Department at that time was one of the legal arms of the oppressive regime, the oppressive government that existed in this country, and still today semi-represented. I'm somewhat modifying my description of them because things have changed since that time. Some for the better and some, some things stay the same. But they had to call in the National Guards to defeat or to put down the revolt of 1965. And as I said, that was significant because the Los Angeles Police Department had the reputation of being the finest police department in the nation at that time. As a result of that, the aftermath of the revolt, things begin to happen. First of all, we begin to stand up and define and speak for ourselves. We begin to speak truth to power, as they say. We were not listened to, we were not heard by law enforcement or any governmental institutions in this country, and especially here in California, which was unique because California, the West, supposed to have been a liberal state, and racism like it was in the South, and the rioting of the Klan was supposed to not have been taking place here. But the same thing was happening here in California that was happening in the South, only without the sheets or the hoods from the Klanmen. Here they wore badges and guns and took oaths to protect and serve. Watts at that time, Watts there and still now, it's only a 2 square mile area. It's only 2 square miles with probably 200,000 people. But it united as a community. And as a result of what Watts did in 1965, and it was a united community in terms of everybody, 90% of the people in the community was united as one. I'm talking about from little kids to senior citizens. We were all on one accord, and that was a quality of life issue, and we were all against police brutality, economic exploitation, and job discrimination, education discrimination. All of these things were running rapid and routine in the black community in the 60s. A lot of people say a lot of things have changed and we have more opportunity, we have better opportunity. It's all about whether or not you want to apply yourself. That's half true. It's about how much you're willing to apply yourself to take advantage of opportunity. But never forget that the struggle continued. There's still a challenge. Just because Barack was elected as president and people say, well, now we're going past the color thing, it's not about color anymore. Well, why do they keep reminding us all that he's black? If it's not about color anymore, if it's no big thing, that if we've gone past that or in the process of going past the question of color, just say Barack is a president. What's unique about it? What's unique about it is the struggle it took for us to get here and the struggle that's still ahead of both Barack, who in my opinion just took over as the captain of the Titanic, and the future that we as a people are going to be in charge with. And that's most of you here in terms of the future and what's to come. The actual revolt, and I said Watts is 2 square miles, but the actual revolt covered from Alameda Street on the east to Crenshaw on the west to 120th on the south to Pico on the north, which was the entire black community. That's what was so devastating to the establishment about this, because black people all over, even those that were not involved, were supportive of the issues and the conditions that existed prior to that they saw was coming to an end and brought about significant change. I believe in 1965 they had less than 5 black police officers on the Los Angeles Police Department out of more than 5,000. 5 black police officers. I don't know if they had any Hispanic at all, and most of them a lot of them that were in the police department was recruitees out of the South by police chief named William Parker. William H. Parker, I think was his name. But he recruited out of the South, white police officers, and signed them mainly to the black community. As I said, the renaissance that Professor Scott talked about in terms of Harlem and Watts, as I said earlier, Harlem, I believe, was more of an artistic renaissance. Watts was more of a political renaissance, but it did have an artistic component to it, because the artists, the musicians, the entertainers that came out of that was like the Watts Prophets, Charles Wright, Watts 103rd Street Band, Brenda Holloway, the Whispers. All of these groups came out of Watts, and poets and others who came out of Watts, and who began to articulate and demonstrate and record and perform, you know, the struggles and the mindsets and the attitude of the masses, which reinforced, you know, the movement in terms of giving us impetus and direction in terms of how we were to address and move forward in terms of the issues that I've mentioned earlier, those quality of life issues. And I mean basic quality of life. A decent job, a decent education, decent housing, decent wages, health care. All of these things were not in existence for us as a people and as a community. As a result of the Watts Revolt, the Martin Luther King Hospital was built. Jobs was developed. A number of social service agencies were developed in Watts. A number of community-based organizations came into being. Westminster Neighborhood Association, the Sons of Watts, the Mothers of Watts, of which Jimmy's mother was a member of, in terms of that. The Watts Health Foundation, which was the first health facility put in Watts, came out as a result of the 1965 revolt. So some things, people were saying, well, why are you burning down your stores, your businesses? We were not burning down our stores and businesses. If you get any documentation or any film footage on the 65 revolt, you'll see they had the black businesses that was there. They had sole brother or black owned in the business, and they were not touched. The businesses that was touched was those businesses that was exploiting the black community with high prices, inferior goods, and high credit in the community. Those were the businesses that were burned down. Those were the businesses that was damaged. It was not, and we were not the owners of those businesses. They were outside people. You can look and see who the outside people were. Who owned those businesses and was exploiting this community. And as I said, some of this stuff even goes on right now today. If you live in a black community, one of the reasons that if you don't shop there is because the quality of goods and services is not up to par. You go to white communities, you go to other communities to buy your food, to buy your clothes, to go to for your entertainment. You don't do it in your own community. And whose community do you go to? It's not yours. So those things are still today confronting a lot of us as a people, and will be confronting a lot of you. And you know, I hope that as you develop and grow, you understand the role you're going to play in society and in life. I was Supervisor Kenny Hahn, who was the representative of the district at that time, office one time, having a meeting with him. And I saw a sign on the wall that said, "One man with courage is a majority." But it should be one person, that includes women as well. And the role that females played in the movement, which I just want to say they play a significant role. This is not a male movement. Both female and male equally responsible and can carry the responsibility of leadership equally as well. And they said one person with courage is a majority. You're growing up to be the leaders of tomorrow. You're going to have the courage, the commitment, the strength, the dedication to stand up and speak truth to power and do the right thing in the face of overwhelming opposition and overwhelming criticism from friends, family, and those who are supposed to be your colleagues and your friends and your supporters. It's leadership is a hard job. It's a job that, you know, it's only you. Decision making is shared, not leadership. There's only one father, there's only one mother, there's only one president, there's only one governor. And whatever position you'll be in that leadership role, you'll be the only one there. And that's a lonely position, and you got to be committed. You got to be You know, you gotta have something to keep you, you know, committed to what you believe in, because you can get knocked off center real easy standing out there by yourself. It's like playing the Lakers by yourself. You don't have a chance. You've got to build a team. You gotta have a team of people around you, and you have to be all on the same page, on the same accord. And that accord usually should be for the improvement of yourself and your people and your community and your nation as a whole. It don't stop with us. Once we as a people get ourselves together, we still have a lot of work to do. Just like Barack. He's got to get America straight. And that's a job. And it's going to be a hard job, and it's going to take, of course, you know, all 8 of his years. He'll have as much gray hair as I have got when he gets out of that office. Watch what I tell you. So in terms of the institutions that came out of the revolt, there were governmental institutions, and then there were community institutions. And the community institutions are the most important. Governmental institutions are going to always be here as long as there's a government, and their role is to always support the masses of the people. Individual institutions is going to address the cultural and individual needs of the group or of the community as itself. The number one example is the church. Most of you, even if you're not a member of the church, you will have a church in your community if you're in the black community. For every church there's 2 liquor stores, so you know people need a lot of churching. And they have maintained and they have survived because of 3 things: money, material, and skilled personnel or knowledgeable, committed leadership. Those 3 things have maintained black institutions, whether they're businesses or religious institutions. Those are the resources that we as a people need to develop, cultivate, and circulate in our community. There's a study that says that, you know, for I believe the Jewish community, the dollar circulates like 8 or 9 times before it leaves. The Hispanic community, probably 7 or 8 times before it leaves. White community, about 7 or 8 or 9 times before it leaves. And our community, I don't have to tell you what the numbers are. It's in and out, just like the burger stand. It's in and out. That's why we do not have the kind of infrastructure and community that most people have. We do not have the businesses, the laundries, the car washes, the barbershops. All of those things that we used to have were small businesses are now gone. And there's no businesses in our community that we patronize or support or have as a people, which we must develop if we're going to maintain our existence and our continued growth and development as a people. We've got to have those things. They're essential to life and to continued growth and development. And the last point I'd like to make here is cultural integrity. Cultural integrity. Your culture is everything. Every person on this campus, in this room, who have a culture. They have a culture. They have a God, they have a history, they have a political organization, they have economic organization, they have social organization, they have art and literature, and most of all they have a motif, a cultural motif. It's something, ethos, I should say, a cultural ethos, in terms of they're outstanding for or best known in, from what I'm